If you haven't caught the previous video, we broke down our top 5 running backs. Just to quickly run through that, we have Sky Gawasko's top 5 running backs. That includes Jahmyr Gibbs at 5, Barkley at 4, Hall at 3, Bijan at 2, and CMC at 1. My running backs, Bobby Lamarco, if you don't know the name, Jahmyr Gibbs, Kyren Williams at 4, Bijan, Breece Hall, and Christian McCaffrey. So, Sky, I think we have to address the elephant in the room, and it's our number 4. The irony is we have 4 of the 5 the same. So we're like almost Spider-Man guys pointing, but like maybe one of us has the black suit on, the other one has the, I don't know. I don't know what the analogy is, but Sky, tell us why, for example, you have Barkley in your top 5 and why you have Kyren outside your top 5.
Well, I'll start with Barkley at number 4. Again, in this elite offense with the Philadelphia Eagles that runs through the run and has pass catching opportunities. They wanted Miles Sanders to be that guy. He's not. My boy, they have 4 other running backs in the last 2 seasons that they've wanted to be kind of a bell cow / pass catching running back and have the ability to score in short yardage situations. They haven't really had that with any consistency. I love my boy Kenny Gainwell, but even he was not able to keep it consistent. They bring in Saquon Barkley, who of course is that guy, coming from an offense like your Giants into the Eagles. It's night and day. It's not comparable at all for what Philadelphia was able to do and what the New York Giants were able to do. And now you get Saquon coming over there with, I think, fresh legs, again, coming off an injury last year. We saw him catch his stride finally. The differences, though, are just, again, night and day. The Houston Texans Philadelphia was 12th in points per game, and then you had the Giants at 30th, right? So when you have just an exponential growth in the amount of opportunity to score, that's great for fantasy in general with the general points, but touchdowns, obviously. And I know that Jalen Hurts is kind of that guy right now, but I think that they might want to back him off a little bit on the tush push. Kelsey retiring, I think, is going to matter more than fantasy people are paying attention to with that particular play. Therefore, they might be dropping back and handing off to Saquon Barkley a little bit more often. So Saquon for me is a top 5 guy. Kyren Williams, he's at number 7 for me, Bob, right? So I'm not throwing him in the trash, but that's my dog.
Before you go, I think, just for flow purposes, I want to rebuttal on Barkley first. As you can see, it's hard for me to just sit here and listen to all this Barkley love that I can't even say the word
that you had for a season.
Yeah, let's just say Barkley broke my heart and left us and went for the Eagles. And listen, I don't really care. He's fine. I've got Devin Singletary now. Huh? So what do we care?
Nice.
So anyway, I think there is a common perception that the Eagles have an elite running game for running backs. But in reality, it's actually hasn't been fruitful because of Jalen Hurts' rushing in the red zone. And so if you look at the Eagles, the 3 seasons with Jalen Hurts, they've been in the bottom half in fantasy points scored by running backs. And they were actually in the bottom 10 the last 2 seasons, especially with the last 2 years having A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and Devonta Smith in the passing game. The other issue for Barkley is that he does his most dominant seasons have been tied through the air, getting targets. That's not what Jalen Hurts does. He does not target his running backs enough. And so I do think Barkley is still a top 10 running back. I have him at 9 right now. But the reason why I don't have him in my top 5 is because I don't think he's going to get – by the way, if you look at DeAndre Swift and you look at Miles Sanders, they ran the ball very well. Miles Sanders had a great season, double-digit touchdowns. They both were in the high 4s in yards per carry, which, by the way, and I understand the Giants, line wasn't good. But Barkley did not have 4 yards per carry last year. So I do think his running game will be better. And I'm not saying he won't be better on the ground. But he's not going to get all the touchdowns. It's going to go to Jalen Hurts still on the 1-yard line. He loses the goal line work. And then listen, Kenny Gainwell, maybe he does get 2-minute drill work still. He does fit that role. So I think Barkley losing those receptions is going to be the problem why I don't have my top 5. The reason why I have Kyren in my top 5, and really it's like how many times you have to see an offense to realize that they want a bell cow. Like Sean McVay took over Todd Gurley, took him to new heights. Gurley goes down. They try to bring in Cam Akers. Cam Akers has stretches before his injuries where he's a dominant workhorse. He has 20 carry games, all this stuff. Then Sony Michel comes in and he has a big season. And I think a lot of the reason why we don't know this is because there's been so many injuries to the Rams running backs. There's been so much turnover and we think it's because it's a committee. It's not because it's a committee. It's because the guy keeps getting hurt. Kyren Williams last year was out of his mind in fantasy football. If you look at the games last year, he was the only other running back to be clearly over 20 PPR points per game last year, other than Christian McCaffrey. I do think they brought in Blake Corum. The same thing they told us last year about Kenneth Walker. Oh, Zach Cabernet is going to be really involved. He's going to Charbonnet, whatever the hell is it. I don't think I'll ever learn how to say his name. Don't worry about it. I don't think I'll ever say it. But sure enough, Kenny Walker was getting all the work when he was healthy. Yes, they brought Zach in for passing game work. I get that. But Kyren Williams, I think they brought in Blake Corum because they want to have a backup running back that could fill a 3-down workhorse. Until I see otherwise, I'll be drafting Kyren Williams aggressively. If he does get hurt, guess what? I will just make sure I draft Blake maybe a round or two ahead of his ADP, and I'll have my handcuff. And if he goes down, so be it. But Sean McVay loves his RB1s. What do you say, Scott?
He absolutely does. And again, Kyren Williams is number 7 for me. So I have one player between Jahmyr Gibbs at 5 and Kyren Williams at 7, right? And that player is Jonathan Taylor, who I think if Anthony Richardson returns to what he was in the 2 games that we got to see him, and Jonathan Taylor's healthy with that offensive line, I think that he could be top 5 as well, right? Whatever. When you're talking top 5 at this time of the season, top 10, a lot of these guys could be making a case for top 5, even top 3. But Kyren Williams, look, like there's not a lot I'm not disagreeing with you that A, he should be drafted. B, I want him on my teams also. It just simply comes down to Blake Corum, I think, is going to be a factor. And as far as, Saquon Barkley versus Kyren Williams, I just simply disagree with you that he's not going to be getting majority of the work on the goal line. I know they had Swift. I know they had Sanders, and they were like, the idea preseason was that will be the guy too. They're not the same back as Saquon Barkley, period. They're just not. They're not as dominant. They're not as efficient in that opportunity. And Saquon Barkley can do things on his own that those 2 other backs just aren't going to do. So I think that it might scale back a little bit with Jalen Hurts offering more opportunity. Kyren Williams, I agree with you, is going to be great. That offense is great. It's prolific. We've seen running back after running back after running back. CJ Anderson, anybody, has been absolutely dominant in that offense, right? But I do think Blake Corum also is going to be a factor there, right? Say what you want about the Michigan offense and blah, blah, blah. He was dominant there, set the NCAA record in touchdowns. It's not going to change. To your point, though, Kyren Williams was the best running back in the NFL per game last year, other than Christian McCaffrey. 30 PPR points twice. One of those, of course, was in the fantasy championship, which all of us remember so much, right? I love that. But I'm just trying to be realistic about the fact that they're going up against a handful of quality defenses. The Rams' schedule, by the way, which we're not getting that far into this yet, but looking ahead in the running back category, I've done that. The Rams' schedule specifically about who he's facing in the first month of the season, 6 weeks, is not great. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. So I just drop him a peg. Again, we're talking top 5, top 7, Bob, right? All these guys are right there. But if I have to put apples to apples, I'm going to take Saquon right now over Kyren Williams.
All right, leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts. Who's the better top 5 running back in 2024? Is it Saquon Barkley? Is it Kyren Williams?